everyone. It's Dave here, Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers. Been commenting publicly on the Minnesota Vikings for over 2.5 decades apiece. That's right. It's a long time, and we're still waiting on that first Super Bowl win. Heck, we're still waiting on them to get back. But anyways, it is what it is. And we'll find out. Why am I getting... Here we go. All right, there we go. I had a echo in my ear. Didn't like that. All right, today we're going to go over 3 themes as usual. First one, what we named the whole program over. How can we make the running game better? What in the heck is wrong? And has it been wrong for a long time? Then we're going to get into this week in Vikings lands. There's a couple of tidbits that Darren wishes to go over, and they are pretty good. I like that section. And thirdly, we're going to get into the game where the Minnesota Vikings travel down to Chicago to play at Soldier Field to see if they can win their 3rd game in a row at Soldier and their 3rd game in a row on the field. Thank you for that one tidbit there, Drewster. All next on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your 2 old bloggers. Hey everyone, it's Dave here once again, and Darren over there. How are things in the Great White North, Darren?
Good, Dave. Got a few of my basketball team's coming over for a little bit of a party tonight because the wife's out of town. So good thing we're doing the show today and not tomorrow.
Gotcha.
Might not be feeling so hot. But anyway, yeah, feeling good. Looking forward to tomorrow's game.
Well, I took Katie to the airport yesterday and last night. Oh, God, traffic was miserable. And I've got the whole week to myself, me and Merlin. There will be lots of Mexican food ingested.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
Mm-hmm. Now, we titled this one, Can Money Fix the Running Game? Let's find out on the theme one. The running game.
Yes. Back with this. Just looking at I'm looking back to last week's game, Dave, when it's against the Titans, and 33 carries for 82 yards. That was like 2.48 yards per carry. Just really couldn't get the running game going at all. We stuck with it, but weren't very productive. But it got me thinking and worrying a bit about the running game. Early in the season, I thought, we were commenting about how the running game looks so much better than it did in the previous 2 years under Kevin O'Connell. Must be Aaron Jones. What a difference he's made. But in the lately, it seems to me anyway that the running game just is back to same old ineffectiveness that we saw in 2023 and 2022, and just wanted to delve into that a bit today. But again, first off is that there's no obvious red flags. When I looked up the stats a bit, there aren't any obvious red flags to me that the running game is really gone downhill the past 5. The first 5 games, we had 577 rush yards on 142 carries, which is just over 4 yards a pop. In the last 5, we've had 587 yards, so we've run for more yards, slightly more carries at 3.88 yards per carry, which isn't a big difference, but that 3.88 yards per carry average over the last 5 games is last in yards per carry in the NFL, which is, you don't want to be last in a lot of offensive categories in the NFL. So not a great sign. And Alec Lewis dug into this early this week too. He was noticing this as well from The Athletic, the New York Times. He delved into this, wrote an article about it, and looking at that, there's really been according to him, there's been no change in the Vikings running game from 2022 to 2023 to now. And you're looking up, you've got that chart up there, Dave, that beautiful chart, and you can see yards per carry, expected points added per rush success rate, explosive rush rate percentage. It's almost identical. A little bit of differences one year to the next, some up, some down, but really it's about the same overall. And that's concerning because it stayed the same despite the Vikings doing all sorts of not doing the same stuff in a lot of ways. They've changed. They went from Dalvin Cook, replaced Dalvin Cook with Alexander Mattison, and from 2022 to 2023. This year they replaced Mattison with Aaron Jones. So they did that, changed the running backs 3 straight years, your number 1 running backs. They've, they kind of culled and focused and honed in on their running game a bit and narrowed it down. They've talked about making the offensive line play much more physical than they had in the past. They added last year blocking tight end extraordinaire Josh Oliver to give the running game, to provide some more blocking strength at the line of scrimmage and hopefully get the run game kick-started. They did mention they traded Ezra Cleveland, replaced him with Dalton Risner last year, hoping that would make a difference. This year, they changed their number 2 running back from Ty Chandler to Cam Akers. And then last week, the Vikings coaching staff pulled the final card that they had to try to do something to fix the running game a bit, and they replaced right guard Ingram, who started the past 2+ years, with Dalton Risner. And yes, again, no changes. And there doesn't seem to be any change at all in the Vikings running game. And last week, and that changed from Ingram to Risner, Dave. Our Tyler Fornes, last week on the post-game show, he didn't think it was the right move then. After looking at the coach's film on Monday on the Real Forno show, he liked it, I think, even less. And so is Risner, going to make a difference and make the running game more effective than it has been the past 5 games, get us going? I don't think so. Because Risner, based on Pro Football Focus and other football people who watch football film, they consider Risner a poorer run blocker than Ed Ingram. So I don't think he's the answer, Dave. And the other fact of it is that makes it a bit difficult to expect that the Vikings run game is going to improve is that we lost Christian Darrisaw a few weeks ago. We replaced him with Cam Robinson. Cam Robinson has generally gotten much poorer run blocking grades than Christian Darrisaw has. And so it's going to be tough for the Vikings to fix a run game when they've got 2 new starters on that offensive line who, by grading metrics and by people who watch football closely on a regular basis, consider these 2, Robinson and Risner, to be poorer run blockers than the guys that they are replacing. So that's not a great sign for hoping that the Vikings run game gets more effective during the seasons, this season. So the Vikings have tried a lot of things, Dave, to get the running game better, and change running backs, get a blocking tight end, shuffle around the depth chart of your running backs, and then do a little bit of shuffling of your offensive line. It doesn't seem to be working very well. And I think that at some point Alec Lewis came to this conclusion in his article as well. He pointed out that I think that he pointed out about the offensive line. Sometimes you just got to look at the offensive line and consider that is where the failure is really coming from. Aaron Jones looks like he's still a really good running back. So if he can't get the kind of consistent running yardage that he's had throughout his career here, then I don't think that it's his fault. It's got to be somebody else's fault. And if you look at, when I watch the Vikings games, and I watch them all, like a lot of people on here, what I'm seeing is at the line of scrimmage, it's very crowded. There seems to be very little daylight for running backs to run through. And I know at the NFL level, daylight is sometimes the creases are pretty small and that sort of thing. But I just do not see the space that I see other teams running backs enjoy on a consistent basis. And so to me, that is clearly an offensive line failure, particularly along the interior. I think most of us can agree that Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill are strong run blockers and very strong pass blockers. But the problem seems to be center Garrett Bradbury, your left guard Blake Brandel, and then whoever is playing right guard during that time. And Lewis pointed out that in that interior, only Bradbury is the only guy who is making above average starter money right now. So the Vikings really haven't invested a lot of financial resources in that area. And, I think that it's the results we are seeing in the running game, kind of, you get what you pay for sometimes. And the results we see in the running game maybe are showing that out. So, if I think that even though they brought in Reisner, I think that it's unrealistic for us to expect that the Vikings running game is really going to turn things around and be much more effective than it has been throughout the last 5 games or the whole season because of the way the offensive line is constructed right now. And that's a shame, because if they could get an effective running game going, I think it would help us in the red zone in particular when things get squeezed and the throwing windows are tighter and there's not as much space for the defense to defend. I think you need an effective running game then to be a successful red zone team. And so that's, if we can't get that, that's limiting our offense. And it just makes us easier to defend because teams know that passing is what we do best. They don't have to devote as much resources to stopping the run because particularly our offensive line is not a great run blocking unit. And it's just going to make it harder for the offense to be the kind of offense we would like to see. So if you're expecting that running game to get improved, Dave, this season, I think that we're going to be disappointed. This is something that's going to have to be addressed in the off season. And I think it can. I don't think Ingram just got, particularly on the right side, Ingram just got benched, of course. Dalton Reiser's on a 1-year deal. I don't think they're the long-term answers. But free agency could be the way we address this and should address this, considering we don't have a lot of draft picks in 2025. Guys like Zach Martin and Brandon Sheriff, they're set to be free agents next year. They play right guard. Now, they're in there early to get into their mid-30s. So they wouldn't be long-term options, and I don't even know if Martin is going to play next year. There's talk about him maybe retiring. He's had a long career and he's been banged up a fair bit the past few years, as has Sheriff at times. But if they are going to play, they would be potential options. They're still pretty good players. It's just that you can't expect them to be playing 4 or 5 years for you. However, one guy who could be a real long-term answer for the Vikings at the guard position is Trey Smith from the Kansas City Chiefs. He's 26. He's set to be a free agent coming up in 2025. And what I've been reading is saying that the Chiefs are probably not going to be able to afford to re-sign him because they've got money held up in Chris Jones, Jason Kelsey, and of course, Pat Mahomes and a few others. So, and Smith is expected to probably set a new benchmark as far as the highest, the biggest contract a guard has received in NFL history. He's expected to beat Robert Hunt deal, which was 3 years last year and about roughly $100 million. Some of that's funny money, but he got a lot of scratch. Smith is expected to break that. That's a lot of money to put into a right guard, Dave, but Smith is a very good player. So that always helps. He's
ascending, not descending. When we looked at Scherf and Martin, both of those guys are starting to descend on their grades. Yeah. Were they great? Absolutely. But they're starting to over the hill. But this guy is nothing but up, baby.
Yeah. You got it down there, but he's got a 79.9 Pro Football Focus grade this year. ESPN has him as a 76.8% run block win rate, which is fifth best amongst guards in the guards in the NFL. That's to all guards, not just right guards. So he's going to cost a lot of money. If he hits the market, Dave, he's going to have a lot of suitors. But the Vikings have about 68.7 million right now in I think cap space by over the cap. That probably will grow depending on what they do with certain players like Harrison Smith next year. But they've got money to spend. Guard and right guard is a big weakness for them. And it's time. You've already invested a lot, I know, in Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw at the tackles, but I think it's time to really consider investing heavily in the interior of the offensive line too. And Trey Smith would be a welcome investment. I don't know if we can get him, but when you put in the fact we've got a lot of cap space, players love the culture and the work environment in Minnesota, and we've got a pretty good team right now. As much as Smith would hate to leave Kansas City, where he's playing in the Super Bowl every year, he also has his family to think about and his financial future to think about. And he's not going to take a hometown discount, I think, to stay in Kansas City if he can get 21, 22, 23 million per year with some team, and that some team is a good team like the Vikings. So I think Smith is a guy to watch as a target for the Vikings next year, but he can't help us right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'd like to address a few things in the remarks. Chris talked about how does their grades affect EPA in that situation. And it's not a direct translation, but generally the better the lineman and the scheme, the better the EPA per play. It comes down to as simple as that. It's, like I said, it's not direct, but it's related. And that's why we put up the grades versus you got to know the run situation and all that sort of stuff, which you do, right? That's coaches need to know, hey, what am I looking at on this down and distance position on the field, everything else, what defense is going to play, all that sort of things. You got to know that to call a game that will maximize your players' talents. Delton's obviously, I thought you were going deer hunting, buddy, but that's okay. Now, one guy cannot fix it all. When you eat an elephant, they always say you do it one bite at a time. You've got to slowly, incrementally do this. But if we if we sign Trey Smith next year at a high dollar contract because he's one of the best in the deal, it would be a huge bite at fixing it. Now, I do believe we need a power scheme, and that needs to go, that we need to draft appropriately for that. Right now, we've got the best guard on the team is Blake Brandel, and he's medium, meh. He's average. You have a center that's very good in the run blocking, but can't pass block worth of shit. Got a right guard. Then you've got a right guard who can't put it all together, has the talent, can't put it all together, gets benched, right? Has the strength to do it, but has not. And he even said this week some absurd stuff, but that he's got the little things, and it is the little things, like not disengaging a block, right? And he even mentioned that this week or something to that effect. And then you got Dalton Reisner, who loses slowly, right? And is a better pass blocker, but a horrible run blocker because we need power and he doesn't have it. We've got the bookend tackles. That helps a lot, tremendously. Now, it's sad that we lost Christian Darrisaw for the season, but hey, he'll be back next year. And Brian O'Neill's playing the best football of his life. That's great. There's Robinson has come in and been okay. Cool. Now, is it the running back? Is it the scheme? Is it the line? I think it's a matter of all three. I think for, this is Dave's opinion, O'Connell would be better go off with a power run scheme if he wants to increase the run ability, and then draft appropriately to do that. You draft any sort of rookie, generally they're going to stink. I said before I want to do a research project probably over the summer. How many actual draftees start their first year and are good? And it's only like one or two. That's it. You can't, they're longer term projects than that. So drafting is part of the answer, but it's not the whole answer to turn this around so quickly. Now, it should have been started when KOC got here. They drafted Ingram. That was a start. They thought Ingram would develop. Ingram was a first rounder by some draftniks. Has he developed into that? No, he hasn't. He still has flaws. Does he have the components to be? Yes, but he still has flaws. Is that coaching? Possibly. Is it just a natural thing? Some players peak in college and that's it. They don't progress anymore. But we can't give up on it. And they're still decent enough to drive us to an 8-2 record. When it comes to O-line ratings, if you take O-line across the board, we're still top 10. I know, shocking. We're 9th. At least a week ago, we were 9th. And that's amazing. And it shows you how difficult it is to put O-lines together. Now, we're talking about yards and EPA and all that sort of wonderful, cool stuff. Where's that slide where we had, let me scroll here. Okay, there's Aaron Jones's. But I went and looked at Vikings rushing stats. Here we go. This one. I went and looked at where the rest of the league sits. Your best running team is Detroit, right? And by golly, they got a good O-line. Almost across the board, they do. Makes sense. And then comes Baltimore and the Cardinals. They've got 2 running quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy next year does have wheels. That's going to help. So, and they're getting an EPA on average. The top guys, they're 5.8 and 5.3, I think I remember, and then 5.0. Right? And being a 5.0 yards per carry is very, very good. We're sitting at 4.0. It's not the worst, but it's down there. There were 7 teams below us when I looked.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to say is the O-line's a project, and it's a long-term one. And there's no quick fixes. And there's especially not one this season because there's nobody out there. Yeah. And we're sitting here talking about Trey Smith. How many other teams are going to be targeting Trey Smith because they have bad guard play? There's going to be a boatload. He's going to make a ton of money when he ends up signing somewhere. And that's it. You have a small pool of players that are considered good in these positions. So it's going to be hard to fix quickly. We just got to hope they keep progressing and the offense keeps scoring and the offense keeps doing its thing and that we work around it. So
it's true. There's, like I said, there's a lot of teams that needs good, have poor guard play and need good guards. Not all of them have the amount of cap space that the Vikings do, though. So that's where that's a benefit. And then, like I talked about, the team culture, the kumbaya vibe that the Vikings have established under Kevin O'Connell. I don't know how much that it doesn't hurt getting players in here, I guess, is my feeling. It's not going to be, I think, the tipping point in whether a guy
an attraction for
it is
free agents. They're going to go, hey, I hear how great the facilities are and the coaches and the team loves it. And I got friends on the team. They're saying, come here, sign with us. It's a big deal, and it does help versus somebody going, hey, Cincinnati's willing to offer you this. And so we're looking at 20 plus million a year for Trey, most likely 22 or better. And then Cincinnati's willing to offer you 23. Well, you can get 22 in Minnesota and have a nicer place to go and a more likely chance to play and win. Some players make that decision to do that. Others make, no, going for the Bucks, baby, going for the Bucks. And they live to regret it.
Which is what Robert Hunt did.
Oh, we can list tons of them. Wide receivers and a bunch of others. Yeah.
He'd be the most recent example at the position we're talking about.
Yes.
But a Trey Smith signing, that would be that's a Steve Hutchinson move right there, where you're getting, okay, maybe Smith isn't the best right guard in the game, but he's pretty darn close.
He's close.
And we know that the Vikings did not regret signing Steve Hutchinson one bit.
Mm-hmm. And so it is now. Sarah suggests makes Grigson GM. She knows how to build old lines.
Well, I think Sarah's got a whole bunch of zingers in there so far. I don't think she's being very serious about any of them. I did see Grigson was mentioned today, this week in an article saying he's a potential GM candidate. And we know he was general manager with the Colts and got turfed out of there because they didn't like his drafting and his player procurement results. But yeah, that he's looking for another GM job, and he may get one eventually. So be it.
Yep. And Brian says they do have good blocking tight end and wide receiver, except Addison. I think Addison's good, but more off tackle runs would help. And obviously, I flew by it, but it was the Christian Darrisaw slide. This one, with him in and with him out. Points per game is dropped. Total QBR is dropped. Interceptions per TDs per interceptions dropped. Yards per play has dropped. And that's because he's gone. He's one of the top, like I said, one of the top 3 left tackles in the league, and he's not number 3. So it is what it is. It's just, and I see the fire Quasies and Quasi's the one that's putting us in the position now so that we can afford said draft pick. Not that we're rolling into the next year and like, oh my God, we're 20 million over the cap. We got to figure out how. We got to shop at the bargain bin like we've done for the last 10 years. It seemed like. So
yeah,
we'll see. But I knew this was going to be an interesting topic and how we can fix the running game.
Sarah, dollar store, Sewell.
Yeah.
They don't play the same sides, but
yep. But we'll see. And that's a good draft choice, obviously, by Spielman. And but oh well. Now on to theme 2. This week in Vikings land.
Yeah, and you love this, Dave, because this is a offensive line heavy 2 old bloggers episode here. We're talking about the run game and the offensive line's impact on that. And our next 2 of our 3 segments in This Week in Vikings Lands also have to do with the offensive line. How about that? But we just talked about some not good stuff about the offensive line. Let's focus on something a little bit more positive, and that being Mr. Brian O'Neill, who is playing goddamn outstanding football this year. Best I have ever seen from him. Pro Football Focus grade is 83.8. I don't know where that ranks among tackles in the NFL. I forgot to ask you, Dave, but it's got to be top 10 anyway. But watching games with O'Neill, I just think he's been playing tremendous. You've been watching a Vikings game this year, Dave. When was the last time you heard O'Neill's name mentioned by the broadcast team? I can't remember.
I've heard it, but that he's playing well. That's the whole point.
Like, there's no, look at, he blew that block there, and the guy got a sack on the person that O'Neill was blocking. Or, no holding number 75, no false start number 75, no penalties, no blown blocks. You watch the games and then watch the coach's film. Brian O'Neill is never given any help. He's taking guys one-on-one, some of the best pass rushers in the NFL, and he is just stoning them. Play after play after play after play after play. And that's just pass blocking. Run blocking, he's strong as well. I think he's a better pass blocker than a run blocker, but still, this guy he's always been good. And he was playing really well last year until he hurt his ankle, and then he fell off. This year, there's been no drop-off. The guy has been a stud, and if so Sarah mentioned Penei Sewell in there, who plays right tackle. He is the consensus considered the best right tackle in the NFL right now, and I don't disagree with that. But he might be the only one playing better than Brian O'Neill right now at right tackle in the NFL. And I know I'm biased, but man, Brian O'Neill's been good. And if our offense is in the top 10, like you say, it really is, Brian O'Neill's a big reason why. Glad to have this guy. Still hasn't reached the age 29 yet, so he's still got lots of good football left in him. I love this guy, great team guy, and a great player who's just been playing outstanding football. Again, can't say enough good things about what he has been this year for the Vikings, all on the offensive line, the stability he brings, the leadership he brings, and his play on the field, what he brings there too, which is outstanding game in and game out. And we're going to see it again against the Bears tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm looking up the stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see.
But we're moving on. Yeah, we're going to stick with the offensive line though for the second segment, which is the Vikings made the move that folks, regular viewers like Sarah have been calling for a long time. The Vikings finally did it. They replaced right guard Ingram with Dalton Reisner last week against the Titans.
And I just found it. O'Neill ranks 8th out of all tackles.
All tackles, not just right tackles. All tackles.
All tackles. He's probably second in right tackle.
Not bad at all. So that is outstanding. But yes, they replaced Ingram or Reisner last week at right guard. The Vikings did. Question is this the right move or the wrong move? Again, Tyler Forness did not like this move. Last week on our post-game show, he talked about how he thought it was going to mess up continuity on the offensive line, and that he didn't think that Ed Ingram, yes, Pro Football Focus says Ed Ingram is horrible, but Tyler thinks that the Pro Football Focus is wrong in that view, and that they have they haven't been rating Ingram properly. He also pointed out that Reisner has never been a great guard player himself in the NFL. And again, when you look at run blocking wise, Ingram is considered a stronger run blocker than Reisner. Reisner's a better pass blocker, but not a stronger run blocker. And so, when that whole thing about pass blocking, run blocking, in 2022 and 2023, I think it would make sense to replace Ingram with Reisner, considering the way the Vikings offense was, because they were a pass heavy team. But this year, they're about 50-50 on their pass plays, run plays. They've had 295 pass plays. They've had 293 run plays. So it's pretty much 50-50 down the middle. And so if Kevin O'Connell is going to continue to have a pretty even split between run and pass, then that gives you a stronger argument to keep Ed Ingram in the lineup, because he's a better run blocker than Ed Ingram. And if we're going to still run the ball a lot, you'd want the better run blocker in there. Yeah, you're going to have Ed is going to have some whiffs in pass blocking, and you're going to have to live with that. But if you're a 50-50 run pass team, then it makes sense to have a stronger run blocker in there, I think. We don't know if that's the way the Vikings are going to go the rest of the season. Maybe with Hawkinson back and the running game being ineffective, that O'Connell's going to start throwing the ball 40 times or more a game. I kind of doubt that, because I think he's trying to protect Sam Darnold from himself and in that way, and doesn't want Darnold throwing 40, 45 times a game, because he holds on to the ball a lot. And the more he throws, the more risky throws you're going to see, which is going to lead to maybe more interceptions, which we don't want. But there's that. I think also just watching the coach's film from the last game of Reisner, I would say his performance was, it was okay. He got Jeffrey Simmons beat him bad. He gave up a big pressure, like right out of the gate. I think the second play of the game. After that, he didn't do anything too egregious. He didn't get his ass whooped in pass blocking on passing plays, which is fine. But on the run blocking, I noticed kind of the same thing. Tyler was mentioned as well Monday on the Real Forno show, but I noticed kind of like with Cam Robinson, what I was saying when I watched the tape of his Colts game. And now, again, me watching tape, I'm not like a scout. I'm just looking for the obvious stuff. But I think I can tell when somebody's getting bowled over or when they're holding their ground. And to me, Robinson, huge guy, he can get in the way, but he doesn't push guys. He doesn't move guys in the run blocking, at least against the Colts. That's what I saw. And Reisner is kind of the same way. Big guy, 6'6", long arms, can get in the way, but he's kind of clumsy, and also he doesn't move people. He just, it's a stalemate or he's given ground. And so I think that's why run blocking, he is not that good. Ed Ingram, if he gets his mitts on you, he'll move you. But so that's why I think he's a better run blocker, just a bigger, stronger, more physical guy. So I don't know. Again, Dalton Reisner, did the Vikings offensive line, did it look any better in pass blocking and run blocking by putting him in instead of Ed Ingram? I don't think it did. And I don't think it's going to make a whole lot of difference for the entire season. So you get what you get and you don't get upset. I guess. I think this is a moving the deck chairs on the sinking Titanic kind of thing. It's not going to lead to a better or really a worse Vikings offensive line. Might make for a little bit better pass blocking, but little poorer run blocking. And depending on how much the Vikings run and pass, I think it's going to be a wash overall. And it's not going to make any impact on any improvement in the run game for sure.
And then we'll keep still winning relatively good games and until we make the playoffs, and then probably. The only difference it can make is if Ed suddenly has a light bulb go off in this moment while he's sitting there watching.
I don't think this whole switch from Reisner to Ingram, and one thing that a good thing you brought this up, Dave, because I was going to forget it, but I think that this ends Ed Ingram's time with the Vikings, and a lot of people will be happy with that, because I don't think he's getting the right guard job back unless Reisner gets injured. And like I said, next year, I think the Vikings are going to address the guard position, particularly the right guard position, because I think they like Blake Brandel and think he can get better. So they're fine with Brandel at left guard, but at right guard, they've got Reisner on a 1-year deal, who they probably won't bring back. And they've got Ingram, who they just benched. And I think they're going to address that, hopefully with Trey Smith. And if that's the case, this offseason, depending on what they do in March and free agency, I think they're going to be looking to see if there's a trade market for Ed Ingram. And because some team, just looking at it, they'll look at maybe some team looks at a highly draft, a guy drafted in the second round. He's still young, still has some upside, maybe in a different team, different scheme, different coaching staff. He's got some upside, and the Vikings might be able to get a late day 3 pick for Ed Ingram in the offseason. I think they're going to try to ship him. I don't think they want to bring him back in 2025 if they sign somebody like Trey Smith, because they can sign another low rent veteran guy for the veteran minimum to be a backup at right guard. And you don't want to keep Ingram on the roster and then he's going to sign somewhere else in 2025 and you don't get anything potentially for him. If you got a chance to trade him in the offseason in March or April, I think the Vikings are going to do that if they can get an upgrade through free agency like Trey Smith at right guard.
Mm-hmm. And they've got to be able to do that. But I don't think we're going to hear the last of Ed Ingram in his career. He's going to have an NFL career. He's got the talent to be at least adequate, because there are so few that have it. That's what's so depressing about talking about linemen.
Yes, Dave could go on for hours about the state of offensive line play in the NFL.
Yep. It's not like it was.
Wind them up.
Mm-hmm. So, all right, let's go to something more pleasing.
Yes. Threw down my notes here. That's terrible. Gotta get notes. Yes. Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson. Yeah.
It is. Yes.
In his superhero book.
That's right. Well, what was it? The second quarter of the Titans game, CBS flashed up that graphic, and we knew it was coming. That Jefferson had just broke the record for most receiving yards in the first 5 seasons for a wide receiver. Torrey Holt had held it with 6,784, and somewhere in the second quarter, Justin Jefferson eclipsed that, and still with 7 games to go. And after the game was over, Justin Jefferson now has 6,811 receiving yards over his not even quite finished 5 seasons in the NFL. So that just got me thinking about the greatness of Justin Jefferson.
And it got his jersey put in the Hall of Fame.
Yes. That won't be the last time he's in the Hall of Fame. His jersey's in the Hall of Fame, I think. But it got me thinking about the greatness of Justin Jefferson, because, he's right now, he's averaging in his first 5 seasons, and this 5th season is not over yet, of course. First 5 seasons, he's averaging 6.4 catches per game and 97.3, is it 97.3 or 94.3 yards per game? I think it's 94.3 yards per game. So 97.3 yards per game, which is the most receiving yards per game ever in the NFL for average in the long history of the NFL. So those are his per game.
Was like in the 87, 88 range.
Yeah. So that is those are his averages. Right now, Justin Jefferson is 25. He's about to finish up his 5th season. If you take that over the next 5 seasons, those averages, Jefferson would rack up roughly about 544 catches over those 5 seasons, and about another 8,200 yards, receiving yards. That would put him well over 1,000 catches and at 15,000 receiving yards per his career, just as he's turning 30. Those are some big numbers when you've just hit 30. And it got me thinking, he'd be turning 30 at 2029. He'd still have a lot of good football left, Dave. Possibly 2 seasons, maybe 3, maybe more, which gets him sort of into the, can he catch? How high can he go in the catches, all-time catches and all-time receiving yards list? The GOAT, Jerry Rice, is well ahead of everybody. 1,549 catches in his career, 22,895 yards, receiving yards in his career. Those seem tough to beat. But I think that Jefferson, if he stays healthy, and that's a big part of it, and can play a long time, he has a shot at catching Jerry Rice, or at least Larry Fitzgerald, who's number 2 behind Rice in both of those categories. And yes, health is going to be a big deal, because the one thing about Rice and Fitzgerald is they played a long time. Jerry Rice played 20 seasons in the NFL, and Larry Fitzgerald played 17. But not only did they play a long time, but they rarely missed games in all of those seasons. I think Fitzgerald in his 17 seasons missed like 9 games total in 17 seasons. So they played a long time, and they always played. That's important when you're setting, you're making those kind of records. But I think Jefferson can do it. One is that if he can stay, I think that he'll be at his athletic peak between 25 and 30 for the most part. So there's a good chance that he can even increase the amount of numbers that he's already averaging. They'll get higher, which means that he'd need less time to less playing time to catch a guy like Fitzgerald and Rice, because he's accumulating bigger numbers during that time. And also, I think that, if he keeps his body healthy enough during that time, he could be very productive into his mid-30s. Whether he's with Minnesota during that time, it's hard to say, but we'll take that as it comes. But I think, again, it's not, I think, it's still, I think, a bit of a long shot for him, particularly to catch Jerry Rice. There's going to be some luck involved, particularly injury luck, and like how well does he take care of his body as he gets into his early 30s that allows him to still be productive, and can he evolve as a player, because his speed will be going down a bit. He'll have to change the type of receiver he is, just like Fitzgerald and Rice did. But I think it's probable that he can do it, and even if he didn't, for him to finish top 3 right now, if he keeps on going at the rate that he's been going, even as he gets to age 30, I think he'll be in the top 15 in total catches in the NFL ever, and top 7 in receiving yards in the NFL ever, which is like fantastic as it is. And then he'd still have potentially 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 seasons to build on that. So, just take it in, Vikings fans, because when you're watching Justin Jefferson every Sunday, you are watching one of the best to ever do it.
Right. And it's going to be interesting. All right. He passed Torrey Holt. Who's next on the list? When it comes to most per, within a certain amount of time, obviously this time, 5 years, there's nobody. But where does he start stacking on the all-time lists is what we're going to get. First, we're going to pass. He's already passed, I believe, Adam Thielen on the Vikings list, which puts him in 3rd, something like that. So he's still got a few places to go, and he's only 4.5 years in.
Yeah.
And with half a season missed last year.
Yes.
So this is a treat, no matter what. Watching Justin Jefferson play is a treat. And Sarah, you're fine. Don't put yourself in timeout. We enjoy this. Now on to theme 3. The game.
Vikings Bears.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the Bears. They've lost 4 straight. And the Vikings have 4 games up on the Bears in the win column. So this kind of looks like a mismatch, but I think I'd be very careful about considering that this is like an actual mismatch, because the Bears have actually a +7 point differential this season, despite having a 4-6 record. And they had 2 of their losses. Well, one came on a last-second wild Hail Mary. Amazing that Tyreek Stevenson is in that shot after he spent the first 30 seconds of that play with his back to it.
Well, he was the one that tipped the ball to the receiver.
But this play got them the one last play of the game. Successful Hail Mary by Washington on the last play of the game beats the Bears there. And then last week against the Packers, last second field goal by Santos gets blocked on the last play of the game. So if those two things don't happen, very improbable plays, the Bears likely are probably 6-4 going into this game and not 4-6. And things look a little bit different. So that's why this game is like on paper seems like it's a bit of a mismatch, but I don't think it actually is. And specifically on the Bears offense, I don't think has that Ryan Poles has put together with a lot of, and Matt Eberflus, the coach, have put together. The Bears offense hasn't performed the way that those guys expected they would perform this year. But I think the defense has. They got a pretty good defense. They've only given up 187 points this year, which is seventh fewest in the NFL. And DVOA doesn't like them quite as much. They've only got them ranked 15th. But I think that this is a pretty solid defense, a good defense. Now,
does DVOA have us ranked on the defense?
Number 1.
By far.
Yes.
Aaron Schatz goes on and on about it. Every show I see him
on. But the Bears defense, the weakness is considered their run defense. They've given up they're 22nd in rushing yards given up. So that tells you, well, the Vikings should be trying to exploit that. Well, I'm not really convinced with the way we went into this in theme 1. I'm not really convinced that the Vikings can take advantage of that weakness that the Bears have. I hope that they do, because passing is what we do best, not running the ball. And I think that
speaking of Aaron Schatz, he said on, I want to say Vikes Now interview this week that this will be the get right game for our running attack. Dalton, can you tell me, I didn't look up this week, who's the reffing crew and how much do they call and what sort of trends do they call?
That is always useful to check out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm not convinced that the Vikings can exploit that weakness. I hope that they do, but I feel that really that it's still passing is what we do best. And we are going to have to pass the ball effectively here, which I think is difficult because the Bears, I think, have a pretty strong secondary. Jalen Johnson's one of the top corners in the NFL. Tyreek Stevenson, when he isn't showboating and turning his back to the crowd on Hail Marys, is a real physical, in-your-face kind of corner. Kyler Gordon's their nickelback. He's not bad. They've got Byard at safety who's been playing well this year. So they're going to test Justin Jefferson and the Vikings wide receivers in this game. And Jefferson's going to do what he does every week. He's going to have 6 to 8 catches at least, anywhere between 80 and 100 yards. But
could be more.
And we hope that it is. But I really think that this is a game where somebody else has got to help him out. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson in particular, maybe even Jalen Naylor and his Butterfingers, they got to take some pressure off of Justin Jefferson. It can't just be all Justin Jefferson with the explosive plays and moving our offense down the field. We have to have a 6 to 8 100-yard game from somebody like Addison, who has not done it this year. We need TJ Hawkinson to do that. And I think Hawkinson is going to be big in this game because he is a guy that he's going to provide answers to Sam Darnold in that short to intermediate area when we need it on 2nd and 7 or 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, where he can catch those passes like he did against the Jaguars and keep drives going. I think he's going to be key in this game. Pretty quiet in the first game against the Colts, and again last week against the Titans. He didn't show much, but with Josh Oliver out with the ankle injury, and that's a big loss for us. TJ Hawkinson's snap count is going to go up, and I think his usage rate is also going to have to go up. And I think that's a good thing.
Go what we expected like last year.
Yeah. But I think Hawkinson and Addison in particular, they've got to come up big in this game and be a credible number 2 or 1B to Justin Jefferson's 1A. Now, the good news with the Bears passing defense is they did give up some explosive plays last week to Green Bay in the passing game. Christian Watson in particular caught a couple of long balls, and that's not something you see a lot out of Christian Watson. So I think if the Bears try to play single coverage on Justin Jefferson, I think Kevin O'Connell and Justin Jefferson and Sam Darnold are going to look at that, and they're going to try to hit a couple of big ones and see if they can get a big explosive quick strike type play to get us some points quickly. I don't know if the Bears are going to do that, but they do have Jalen Johnson, who I think they have a lot of confidence in. We'll see where that goes. Another big key in this game, I think, is going to be a one-on-one matchup to watch is Montez Sweat. He was dominant in the one game he played against Minnesota last year when he got brought over from Washington after the trade, 1.5 sacks. He was in our backfield pressuring Josh Dobbs the whole game. Dobbs was scared for his life in that game. Sweat was just a big problem for us. Well, Brian O'Neill will probably be lined up facing him. We talked about how good O'Neill has been in this game. He's got to be even better against Sweat. He's got to be able to win that one-on-one tomorrow and give Darnold the time to find guys like Addison and Hawkinson when Justin Jefferson is double or triple covered, so we can keep the ball moving and score those points. I mean, the offense is moving the ball, Dave, like we know the last 3 games. Yeah. That hasn't been the problem. The problem has been once we get to the opponent's 30-yard line or in.
Getting the red zone that we've got to continue and put the ball in the end zone. Yes.
And
to our team players, not throw it to the other ones.
Well, it's not just the turnovers. That's been a big issue, Dave, but just the negative plays that we're having at bad times. Like I point to that second last drive against the Titans last week where we're in field goal range. We're ready to make it a 2-score game. And Akers has a decent, I think 3 or 4 yard run on first down. I think we were at the 32 or 33 yard line at the time. Then the second they run it to Akers again, he loses 4 yards. 3rd and 8. What happens? Darnold goes back, holds the ball too long. Now maybe that wasn't his fault. Nobody's open. He gets sacked, almost fumbles the ball, and we're out of field goal range. And that seems to happen on multiple drives when we get down deep in the opponent's, deep in their territory, and we're just having a lot of that. And I don't know how that gets fixed, but we have to be better.
Well, I mentioned it last week. Drew, our buddy Drew Bunting from Vikings Report, mentioned that 30-30, the way KOC plans is attack. But once he gets inside the 30, it seems to be, well, let's react to what the defense is doing or what we anticipate them doing. And it's not as aggressive because they are, well, we believe the defense is going to do this, so we'll do this. That's the play call. Versus going for their throat and calling, hey, yes, the field is shorter, thus I need to compress things. Where am I getting my openings when it's compressed? And go for the throat there. That's what he should be doing, and why we aren't. Hopefully he figures that out by watching us or Drew and Vikings Report with Drew Bunting, Ted Glover, and Chris Gates. And we'll fix that for this game, so we won't have to worry about it.
And yeah, I feel like when we get down there, Dave, I'm not off topic here, but I'm not getting to, this might be a little bit longer, but I feel like perhaps one of the issues is, particularly when we get in the 20-yard line and deeper than that, is we're trying to throw the ball at maybe too often and you would, like at players that the defense is expecting us to throw it to, like at Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison, and they've got those covered. But you remember that the little pass that got the touchdown to Akers? Nobody was in that game. Nobody's expecting, like we went. Darnold gets the snap. He rolls to his left, cuts back. Akers, dips out, is uncovered, wide open, touchdown. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, right? Like the Titans defense was not accounting for Cam Akers at all. And I feel like if we had one or two of those plays when we get down deep like that, I think we'd be much more successful than trying to run it up the middle with an interior offensive line that can't get any push. And then we get like half a yard, and then it's second and goal. And then we try to throw like a fade to Jefferson, who's tightly covered with with just the end zone barrier. There's no grass for him to create any separation. That's happening a little bit too often. I love those fake the run, have somebody like Oliver or Johnny Munt run across the side of the field on a 1st and 5 inside the 10-yard line, and they're wide open every time, and we get a touchdown every time. But it seems like we only run that play 2 times a year, right? Even though it works every time we try it.
Yeah, run it until it stops working.
Yeah. So just something to. So I think that's part of what Drew's talking about how reacting to what the defense is doing or not being aggressive enough instead of running plays that work. So anyway, I think when we're switching to the offense, Bears offense versus the Vikings defense, Bears offense not very good this year, averaging I think 19.4 yards, 19.4 points per game. That's 22nd in the NFL. So not great, but and Caleb Evans, number 1 draft pick this year. It's been a bit of a struggle for him overall this season, but he's a talented guy, and the Vikings, he's a quarterback. The Vikings have not seen a quarterback like this entire year. He has got some unbelievable escapability. He's like Houdini in the pocket sometimes, Dave, if you've watched games with him where you got him, you think you got a guaranteed sack, and he spins out of it, and then he'll make some kind of weird off-platform throw, and he throws a dime on time and on target for a big play. He's got an amazing ability to do that, and it leads to some big plays for the Bears offense. It's kind of been a double-edged sword for the Bears, though, Dave, with him, because he thinks he can extend plays like he could at USC and in high school. He often runs into or walks into sacks, holds the ball too long, and that's why a large part, along with the Bears' offensive line being A, not that great, and B, have been dinged up at times this year. That's why he's been taking a ton of sacks. So we know that the Bears changed their offensive coordinator a week ago. They fired Shane Waldron and they replaced him with Thomas Brown. Well, Brown did some things last week against Green Bay to change that. There was a big emphasis on quick short passes and getting the ball out of Williams' hands quickly. I think he had 2.42 seconds to throw last week by Caleb Williams, which was the shortest of the season this year. 18 of his 31 passes, Williams that is, were 5 air yards, traveled 5 air yards or less. There was a lot of horizontal wide receiver screens. They mixed in a lot of run pass option with Williams just to test if the Vikings were disciplined with their eyes or whether they would buy the fakes. And it worked pretty well against Green Bay at times. I think you're going to see, again, I expect you'll see a lot of that again tomorrow. Try to get the ball out of Williams' hands quickly. Don't have him stand in the pocket too long. And I'm really interested to see what kind of rush plan Brian Flores has for Caleb Williams, because he is so talented at those off-script plays and moving around. How are the Vikings going to try to limit that and make him just strictly a pocket passer and prevent him from doing the Fran Tarkenton imitation and running around and around and around and around and getting the defenders all in circles and then making a big play off of that? So I think it's going to be pretty key for them to have a good rush plan and force Williams to be patient and try to dink and dunk his way down the field. We know the Vikings have been awesome at the stopping the run this year. They really only the 49ers for part of the game and the Rams for part of the game, and then the Lions have been the only teams who've been able to run on us. Otherwise, we have shut running games down. I don't expect DeAndre Swift or Rashawn Johnson from the Bears to do much damage in the running game, but Williams was their second leading rusher last week against Green Bay. He had 70 rushing yards. So, again, rush plan.
That's why I think it was Dalton said they're probably going to put a spy on him, which I would assume.
And your spy probably would be Blake Cashman, perhaps.
Cashman or Pace, one of those two.
It would be either of those two. And maybe Pace actually makes it better because you want Cashman back there in pass coverage. You don't want you don't want him being the spy necessarily, because that takes him away from pass coverage, which he's so good at. Whereas Pace is a great downhill guy. Give him somebody to chase and he'll take him down. So that would be a good option. We'll see if they do that. Really curious to see how they handle that. Because again, I think if Williams can get some scrambling, can get some yards with his scrambling ability like he did against Green Bay, it's just going to open up the Bears offense and make them much more effective. I think really with the Vikings, the key, just like they did against the Titans, against the Jaguars, against the Colts, you're winning on first and second down, getting Williams into third and long, and keeping him in the pocket. That is the way this game is going to be won. And the Vikings have been great at doing that to just about every quarterback they have faced this year. And when you get him at third and long, then Flores can amp up the pressure and then get Caleb Williams confused about what he's facing and speed up his internal clock. That's what you'd like to see tomorrow, because the Bears do have weapons. I mean, they got DJ Moore is a good wide receiver. Roma Dunze was a top 10 pick. They added Keenan Allen. None of those guys, though, have been huge factors this year, and largely because Williams has taken a lot of sacks, and those sacks have been drive killers. But if the Vikings can't contain him, particularly in the pocket tomorrow, and then the Bears have some success early, Williams gets his mojo going, the Bears get their mojo going, that's going to be a problem for the Vikings. So they really have to not let that happen. I have faith that they do. What I don't have faith in is that we've been a team we're great at creating turnovers. We've got 21 this year, Dave, but we're not great at preventing our own turnovers. We have 17 that we've given up. So whereas the Bears have created 17 turnovers, but they've only had 8 turnovers themselves. So that's going to be a big issue. Can we play a turnover-free game, considering the Bears offense doesn't turn over the ball a lot themselves?
Well, hopefully we'll change that tomorrow.
Yes, hopefully we will. But that's one of those things where the Bears have been very good with ball security this year and taking the ball away from the opponents. We have been great at taking the ball away from opponents, but not great with ball security. That's going to be a huge point in this game. And if the Vikings can play turnover free, I feel good. If we don't, and most games we have not, then I don't feel so good about it. And overall, sad to say, I don't feel great about going into this game for a variety of reasons, which I already mentioned. We've won 4 straight in Soldier Field, but it's always a struggle there. The Bears have lost 4 in a row. Are they due? I feel that they are. They're better than the 4-16 that their record. They don't have a great head coach, but I don't know, Dave. I don't feel good about this one. I feel like we're going to lose by a small margin tomorrow. I don't know. You probably feel differently, though.
I do, very much so.
I don't think you picked against the Vikings once this season.
Well, the Bears organization is dysfunctional right now. They're at each other's throats. We're hearing all sorts of stuff coming out of the locker room about the bag man should play instead of Williams. The whole Badgett, Tyler Badgett.
Oh yeah, I know that, but yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
That there's all sorts of other stuff going on. The firing of the OC, the new OC coming in with a short, quick game. Obviously, he simplified the offense for him so that he can do that. This is a rookie quarterback facing the maestro for defensive coordinators that loves screwing with quarterbacks' heads. And it's only the old timers, seasoned ones, that seem to be able to get by him.
It's a good point.
Williams is not that guy. Mm-hmm. He's not going to get by what Brian Flores is going to bring. So I think the offense is going to sputter. He might have a few good plays and a good drive or two, max. That's it. I'm calling that. It's going to be a Vikings field day tomorrow. We should get. Yeah, but I hate calling that because I usually jinx it. It should be a Vikings field day tomorrow, and then The run game should be better. The pass game should be better because Justin Jefferson gets doubled and tripled by the league, right? And he still finds ways to put 80, 100, 100-plus yards against teams. And then you have Addison, who should hopefully have 100, and TJ Hawkinson 100. I think tomorrow's going to be a big, big day. I looked at the weather. It's not bad. It's, I think, 50s and cloudy. No wind.
It was beautiful last week against Green Bay. They had sunshine. People were wearing short sleeves. It was, I mean, the players, not the people in the stands, but.
Dave is saying the Bears win against the Vikings, save the fan base. All right. Yes, the Bears will pull this one out. No, and believe it or not, I heard a tidbit, I think it was from Seifert this week, that Kevin O'Connell has a better grass win-loss rate than just about every coach, once we moved inside.
Mm-hmm.
He has won 7 out of 11 that they played on grass or something like that. So, outside on grass. So, we'll see. Sarah says Eberflus will F it up some way, somehow. And I'm sure he will. Eberflus, I think, would make a very, very good defensive coordinator. And he was, obviously, before he became a head coach. But I think he's cut out for defensive coordinator. The Bears defense is good for the most part. Now, I still think the strife and everything that's going wrong and everything else, it's going to go bad. I mean, you've even got Courtney Cronin saying, the Bears ain't going to win this one. And she
loves the Bears.
Obviously.
She loved them even when she was covering the Vikings.
And so it is what it is. I think we come out and we'll be 9-2 after the weekend. At least I hope we will. Now, I don't want to jinx anything, but I hope we will. And Sarah, you're right. It's an NFC North game, which means it's going to be closer generally, and there's stupid stuff that will happen, and guaranteed it's going to cause us heart palpitations and angst. We're not going to go there, into the third quarter up, and we're up by 4 scores, complete scores. It's 28-0, and we're cruising. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll find out. We'll see.
And even with my pessimism, which isn't odd for me, but we need to come out 9-2 in this game because again, the Lions are 1 game ahead of us. They're going on the road against the Colts tomorrow. I think that game might be tougher than maybe some people think, but I still think the Lions are winning that one, barring something really strange happening. And, a Packers 49ers game seems like a tough game, except Brock Purdy ain't playing.
And he's not the only one. Yeah.
And Brock Purdy ain't playing, and Bosa isn't playing, and it's on the road.
I heard fraud mentioned quite a few times. That's how I feel about the Packers. They're not as good as their record states. They go up and down.
Sure. They don't have to be, though. How they win, it doesn't matter. They just, if they keep on winning, we lose tomorrow against the Bears, and they likely beat the 49ers, and we're both 8-3. And even as well as we played this year, we're still fighting for our playoff lives.
Sarah, I saw the no Eber lose. Now, I can hear my Father from heaven tell me, and God rest his soul, he's an avid Bears fan. He's screaming at me right now. But anyways, Dad, I love you. Any last words, everybody?
Oh, how about it? Caleb Evans getting waived today, right, Dave?
Forgot to bring that up. Yes. Great.
Just the 2022 draft just keeps on getting better.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about it off stage. Lewis Seen cut is now with the Buffalo Bills and being converted into a linebacker. Andrew Booth gets traded with the Cowboys, never sees the field with them. He'd buried on the depth chart. Brian Asamoah only plays kickoff on special teams. He won't be with them, the Vikings, next year. I'm convinced he'll get cut. Caleb Evans has now been waived. Maybe they bring him back to the practice squad, but he never plays. Doesn't matter.
He's a special teamer.
Yeah. Vidarian Lowe got traded last year. I think he was a 6th rounder. Right now, Ty Chandler is the shining star of the 2022 draft. Didn't even mention, we mentioned before, Ed Ingram, your second round pick, is benched and probably will not see the field again unless there's an injury issue in this season and beyond. So, just can't say enough bad things about the 2022 draft, and yet still 8-2 this year.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, undeserving 9-2. We've got the best defense in the league. That's got to mean a little bit.
She's been anti-Viking sarcastic the whole show.
Yeah.
Doing it on purpose.
Yes, I'm sure she is. But anyways, hey, reminder, tomorrow at the 2-minute warning or slightly before, I will go live to roll with everybody that joins me in the final 2 minutes. Hopefully it's a cakewalk and we've already celebrating a win. But, hey, it may not be. We might be screaming at our TVs or cussing at the current O-line setup or whatever it is. And then we're live at the 2-minute warning. And then everybody gathers from Vikings First and SKOL. We'll have Darren. Can't get the point right today. Sal and Tyler come on. Jonas should be there as well. And we'll come on and talk, react, how the game went, where did KOC screw up, why did Sam Darnold throw so many interceptions, why did whoever fumble, why did Jalen Naylor drop a ball in his chest, all that sorts of stuff. We'll be here for you tomorrow live at the 2-minute warning. So we look forward to you joining us and going through all the celebration or heartache. Maybe we're not 9-2. God forbid. Odin forbid. Odin says better. No, we'll be 9-2. So we'll see.
I want to see 500 viewers tomorrow on the live the 2-minute warning.
God, that would be great. All right, buddy, what do we say?
We say SKOL Vikings, and thanks everybody for watching. You were awesome today, just like you're awesome every Saturday when we do this show.
Absolutely. SKOL Vikings.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!